Most people think being broke at 40 is the end of the road. I'm here to tell you, if you're 40 and broke, this may be the first time in your life you've finally stopped lying to yourself. And that is your greatest advantage. Because the day you confront reality is the day you start winning. Let me give you the brutal truth right up front. 40 is not late. But another decade of excuses will ruin you permanently. The hooks of life are simple: discipline, humility, and consistent improvement. And if you're 40 and broke, you must grab every one of them like your life depends on it. Because it does. The difference between people who turn their life around at 40 and those who simply drift into regret is a single discipline: the willingness to accept reality without flinching. Most people don't fail because they lack opportunity. They fail because they refuse to look truth in the face. They drown themselves in comforting illusions, excuses, and fantasies about tomorrow that never arrives. If you are 40 and broke, the first and most powerful step you can take is to strip away every illusion, every justification, and every comforting lie you've been telling yourself for years. You don't need a miracle, a mentor, or a motivational speech as much as you need raw honesty. The world you live in is shaped by your habits, your decisions, and your mindset, not luck or destiny. And when someone finally admits that their entire internal system rewires around responsibility instead of helplessness. Acknowledging reality is not self-punishment, it's liberation. It means you stop blaming external forces for internal failures. It means you stop romanticizing the past or waiting for a better future to appear out of the sky. It means you recognize that if you want change, you must create it. Most people go to extraordinary lengths to avoid this truth. They distract themselves with entertainment, complain endlessly, rationalize their failures, and surround themselves with people who enable mediocrity. But sooner or later, life sends the bill. If the bill has arrived at 40, be grateful. Some people get the invoice at 70 when there's no time left to repay it. Facing reality requires courage. You must admit how much time you wasted. You must accept that some choices hurt your finances, your career, or your growth. You must acknowledge that talent alone was never going to save you, and discipline was the missing ingredient. But here's the secret that most never discover. Once you take responsibility for everything in your life, money, health, career, relationships, you realize that you have control over all of it. You no longer wait for better circumstances. You manufacture them. You stop depending on outside validation and start measuring yourself against your own potential. This is where momentum begins. The moment you say, "My life is my responsibility," you shift from spectator to player. At 40, that shift can outperform a decade of drifting. Because when you act from truth, every decision grows sharper, every step becomes intentional, and progress stops being accidental and becomes inevitable. When you reach 40 and discover your bank account sitting at zero, the most urgent move you can make is to become undeniably useful to the marketplace. Money does not flow to the people who need it most. It flows to those who provide value that others are willing to pay for. The world is brutally efficient that way. It rewards competence, reliability, skill, and problem solving, not wishful thinking. If you've spent decades working in jobs that barely pay the bills, it's time to stop repeating the same cycle and instead acquire a high-value skill that permanently increases your earning potential. The good news is you're not too late. In fact, you're at an age where experience, emotional maturity, and real world understanding give you a massive advantage over someone in their 20s who is still figuring out who they are. Developing a skill the market values begins with humility. At 40, you must be willing to accept that what you know may no longer be enough. You may need to start as a beginner again, studying, practicing, even making mistakes while learning something new. That is not a step backward. It's the only path forward. Skills like sales, digital marketing, copywriting, project management, data analysis, coding, logistics, customer retention, and leadership are in constant demand. Choose one and commit to mastering it, not dabbling, not casually browsing tutorials, mastering it with daily repetition and deliberate practice. When you combine acquired expertise with the life experience you already have, you become extremely valuable in ways a younger competitor simply cannot replicate. Too many adults stop learning after school. They assume education ends at graduation. That single belief traps millions in financial stagnation. The people who rise at 40 or 50 are the ones who realize learning is a lifelong competitive edge. You don't need a degree to win anymore. You need proof of skill and the ability to solve real problems. Employers, clients, and customers will not ask where you studied. They will ask whether you can deliver results. And when you can consistently solve problems, you never stay broke for long. There is a hidden advantage in starting now. The pressure is real. When comfort disappears, urgency shows up. That urgency can fuel discipline like nothing else. You are not reinventing yourself. You are upgrading yourself. Pick a skill, sharpen it relentlessly, and keep sharpening it long after others get lazy or complacent. The marketplace does not ignore peak people who outlearn and outperform everyone around them. At 40, your skill can become the turning point that transforms your financial future permanently. If you are 40 and broke, you must understand one of life's most misunderstood truths. Your income is not the problem. Your behavior is. You can't out-earn bad habits. A person who spends everything they make, or more than they make, will stay broke regardless of promotions, bonuses, or new opportunities. Wealth begins not when you make more money, but when you keep more money. Living below your means is not a punishment or a sacrifice. It is the greatest financial advantage most people refuse to use. It creates margin, space, freedom, and the room for compounding to begin doing its quiet work in your favor. The people who appear prosperous often are not. They drive borrowed cars, wear financed watches, live in houses owned by the bank, and carry credit card debt that silently drains their future. When you reach 40 and your finances are in ruins, The first discipline you must adopt is an unbreakable commitment to minimizing unnecessary spending. Cut ruthlessly. Eliminate the expenses that exist purely to signal status to strangers who don't care about you. If you are truly serious about turning your life around, you do not buy conveniences you haven't earned. You cook instead of eating out. You cancel subscriptions that do nothing for your future. You repair instead of replacing. You wait instead of indulging impulses. These choices don't just save money, they reshape identity. You trade temporary pleasure for long-term power, and the world suddenly starts working in your favor. This process has a compounding effect. When you spend less than you earn, you gain control. That money becomes fuel for paying down debt, for building a small emergency fund, for investing in education or skills, for eventually deploying into assets that grow. You shift from surviving paycheck to operating from leverage. And leverage, once earned, makes every decision better than the one before. The smallest surplus, consistently protected, becomes the seed that grows into opportunity. The tragedy is not that most people don't make enough. It's that they allow every dollar to escape their life as quickly as it enters. Living below your means is an act of maturity. It communicates to yourself that you are capable of discipline, that you are preparing for the life you want rather than indulging the life you wish you had. At 40, that discipline is magnified. You no longer have decades to waste. Every responsible decision creates distance from the mistakes of your past and builds momentum for the future. When you control your spending, you take back control of your life. And that control is the first quiet stage of wealth that almost nobody sees coming. If you are 40 and broke, your single greatest accelerator is not more effort, not more hours, not even more discipline. It's more knowledge. You cannot compound money until you compound understanding. Every wealthy person I've ever known had one trait in common. They were learning machines long before they became rich. Most adults make a tragic mistake after school. They stop studying. They assume experience alone will carry them through life. But experience without new information simply repeats itself. You live the same year over and over, mistaking repetition for progress. Real growth begins when you decide to learn with intention, not by accident. Reading is not entertainment. It's leverage. A single book can compress decades of mistakes made by someone else and hand you the blueprint to avoid them. That's a bargain beyond imagination. You get the lessons without paying the tuition life charged them. And the more you learn, the more you see opportunities that were invisible to you before. Knowledge sharpens perception. You begin spotting risks before they hurt you and possibilities before others notice them. At 40, insight is worth more than adrenaline. You are not trying to outrun teenagers. You are trying to outthink them. And learning does not stop at books. The marketplace changes faster than ever. New careers emerge. New tools reshape industries. New opportunities reward those who keep evolving. If you cling to what you knew 20 years ago, you will be outrun by those who are learning right now. Treat education as maintenance for your mind the same way exercise maintains your body. Set aside time every day to read, study, practice, and question. You don't need hours. You need consistency. 10 pages a day becomes over 360 pages a month, which becomes a small library every year. That kind of compounding separates people who stay stuck from those who climb out of financial ruin. Learning also rewires identity. The more you know, the more confident you become making decisions. You stop feeling intimidated by opportunities and start feeling capable of acting on them. You become harder to replace in the workplace, more valuable to customers or clients, and more resilient in a changing world. And most importantly, learning creates momentum even before the money arrives. It reminds you every day that you are still capable of growth, still capable of improvement, and still capable of becoming someone future you would be proud to meet. Knowledge turns 40 from a dead end into a turning point, and the moment you embrace learning as a daily habit, you shift from being controlled by circumstances to shaping them. If you are 40 and broke, one of the least obvious yet most powerful forces holding you down is the company you keep. Human beings absorb habits, beliefs, and behaviors from the people around them without even noticing. If your closest circle spends their time complaining, rationalizing their failures, avoiding responsibility, and drowning their frustrations in distractions, you will be pulled into the same gravitational field. People rarely outgrow their environment. They adapt to it, and the cost of tolerating the wrong influences at 40 is far higher than it was at 20. At this stage, time is worth more than money, and wasting either to maintain relationships that weaken your ambition is a mistake you can no longer afford. Every life that transforms does so after a shift in association. Spend your time with people who talk about goals, investing, personal growth, and building a better future. And suddenly, those ideas become normal. Surround yourself with individuals who take action instead of making excuses, and you begin acting the same way. Progress becomes contagious. Your standards rise simply by proximity. You start holding yourself accountable the moment you see how high others set the bar for their own lives. The right environment shapes you into someone capable of achieving far more than you believed you could. This doesn't mean you must cut ties with everyone you know. But it does mean you must guard your inner circle with the seriousness of someone protecting their future. Spend less time with people who drain your energy and more with those who challenge you to think bigger. Seek mentors, either in person or through books and videos, who have walked paths you want to walk. Inspiration does not have to be intimate, it simply has to be consistent. And no matter your age, ambition thrives in the presence of others who refuse to settle. It can be uncomfortable to distance yourself from familiar faces, especially when those relationships have filled the years between youth and adulthood. But comfort is rarely compatible with growth. Sometimes the harsh truth is that the people around you benefit from your stagnation. They like you as you are because your progress might force them to confront their own lack of effort. Do not let someone else's fear become your ceiling. If you want to change your financial destiny at 40, protect your environment as if your future depends on it, because it absolutely does. The right people pull you into a higher level of thinking, and once your mind expands, your life inevitably follows. If you are 40 and broke, the most important shift you must make is understanding that success is no longer about bursts of effort or emotional motivation. It is about playing the long game with relentless consistency. Quick wins are illusions. Overnight success stories leave out the months or years of dull repetition that made them possible. Wealth, skill, confidence, and opportunity are all products of compounding, and compounding rewards the patient. When you finally realize that your future depends not on what you do once in a while, but on what you do every single day, you take control of the narrative of your life. This is where the second half of the game begins for you. Not with speed, but with persistence. At 40, you know something younger people often don't. Life is unpredictable and nothing stays still. Careers shift, industries evolve, relationships and opportunities rise and fall. What separates those who survive is not genius or luck. It's the ability to keep moving forward steadily, even when conditions are not ideal. When you commit to the long game, setbacks stop feeling like failure. They become part of the process. Missed opportunities become lessons. Delayed results become indicators that you are building something real, not something flimsy. You stay in the race when others burn out because you understand that consistency is the ultimate competitive advantage. Compounding also applies to character. Every disciplined choice strengthens your identity. When you stick to a learning routine, show up to work with excellence, save instead of spending, and surround yourself with the right people, you are not just improving your life externally. You are reshaping yourself internally. You become someone capable of handling wealth responsibly, someone trustworthy, someone sharp, someone resilient. That transformation matters far more than any short-term gain, because long-term success is not luck falling from the sky. It is the inevitable result of daily effort meeting time. There will be days when you feel tired, discouraged, or convinced that your progress is too slow. That is exactly when most people quit. But the people who win at 40, 50, and beyond are those who simply refuse to stop. They show up again the next day. They push a little farther. They adjust, improve, and try once more. The long game turns ordinary years into extraordinary outcomes. And the greatest advantage of being 40 is that you still have decades left to compound. If you commit to steady progress, your starting point will become irrelevant. Over time, consistency turns struggle into strength, effort into expertise, and persistence into prosperity.